Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So today's project, I want to put a door on this skid steer. So this is a Bobcat T250. It would be pretty easy to put a piece of 1/2 inch Lexan on the front of this, like I did my excavator, except for the way this cab angles out at the top. So I looked into how to bend Lexan, and it turns out it's not very easy. So I think what I'm going to do is just build a new frame on here from the top here down to the bottom and across, and end up making that the new exterior, and then we'll put our hinges on and put our 1/2 inch Lexan on, and that way the hydraulic cutter shouldn't really be able to throw anything back at the operator. I've got this piece of 1/4 inch thick, 1.5 inch angle iron, and I've got my Evolution chop saw. We'll see what we can do. All right, so what I've come up with the measurement is 31.5 inch wide by 41 tall. So let's go cut that out. Might be a good piece for some origami work. Okay, so I've got that 45-degree angle. To get this 45-degree angle, I've got to flip this angle iron over. Looks perfect to me. Perfect. All right, well, there's the new door. Just have to glue it together. So I'm going to clean all these joints before I weld them, because somebody told me if it's worth welding, it's worth cleaning. So I've been using these 4.5 inch flat discs from Harbor Freight, and for this mill scale, and actually even grinding a bevel, they do a really good job, I found. These tables are the titanium modular welding table from Harbor Freight. And I put 2 of them together, and with the little fixtures that come with it, it sure makes fabrication a breeze. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and tack up the corners of this thing so I can hold it up here and see if this is going to fit the way I think it is. And then I'll go ahead and come back and weld all the corners fully. And I welded this entire project using the Vulcan MIG-Max 215 MIG welder. And I tell you what, I'm using dual shield wire, which is a flux cord gas shielded wire. And I'll tell you what, this stuff is coming out. I'm making welds better than I do with 7018, and that's about what they look like. So I'm happy. One thing I figured out in the last couple years, I absolutely love welding. And I'll tell you what, Harbor Freight has made it easy for me to get into and explore that hobby. And I've gotten pretty good now, I think. You know, not a professional, but for a hobbyist welder and with a good grinder, I'll tell you what, I can make it happen. Oh yeah. Okay, to grind into this corner, I've got this deburring tool. So let's check it out. Okay, so with a 1/2 inch thick sheet, you put the hinge here basically. Lock that in. Okay, now then this hinge will go on here, but to cover as much of the ledge as I want to, that's right in the way. So if that came to there, you see that. I need to grind down from here to there, basically to make this hinge thinner to let the wood, which will actually be then a piece of Lexan, slide across there. All right, let's go to the grinder. Okay, so now when the hinge goes together, there's not any of this part sticking above that part. So I can run my piece of Lexan all the way to here, and as it rotates around, there's nothing for it to hit. So we got our 2 brackets. Let's weld them up. Okay, so here's the top hinge, and I've got it 12 inches from the top, and the bottom hinge, I've got 12 inches from the bottom. Let's tack them in place. Nice. I like it. I'm pretty happy with those welds. This is that 035 dual shield, and I'm running on the 1/4 inch settings, which is what these are. And I've got 20 cubic, what is it? 20 cubic feet per hour, I think. To attach these handles to these 1/4 inch pieces of steel, I went ahead and just welded right through the hole for the screw on those handles and I had the settings on, the settings for 18 gauge steel. And what I did was just weld into the steel plate and let it bubble up and kind of flow over that small thin metal of that handle, and it held them right on. Kind of like plug welding, but with different thicknesses. Not bad. I used a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood as a stand-in for the 1/2 inch Lexan because it was going to take about 2 more days before I was going to get my hands on that piece of Lexan. And also this made a template so I knew right where to put all the holes at when I finally get this piece. Perfect. So square, let's mark the holes. I'm glad I used this piece of plywood because here was the first problem I found with my plan. Unfortunately, I didn't go through the entire mounting process with this plywood, or I might have found some of the others. Okay, so putting this safety stop in is a 2-person job because you can't climb out of the skid steer with the arms up. So Maggie, when this goes up, right, this is going to ride along that cylinder, then this part goes right there. And all you have to do is put it there.
Okay.
Yep, now it's safe to climb out under the raised up arms.
And your pin is right here.
Thanks, Mags. All right, so now it's safe to have those arms in the air and to work underneath it. But that is a 2-person job. Okay, before we can weld on this, we need to disconnect the battery. All right, we'll disconnect the negative and that should take care of it. Grinding any place I think I'm going to weld. Okay, and I don't want any issue with sparks. Okay, that should protect that pretty well. I think this should hold it up about right. Okay, now I have to remember not to weld the bottom because this whole cab has to be able to tilt up. We get a level. Okay, so in this gravel, this skid steer is not sitting level anyway. So I'll just see if the frame is about the same amount of unlevel. Okay, so maybe a better way is just to look at the spacing around it. So I think it's that way a little bit. Here. I'm going off the spacing here is the same as the spacing here. So I think that looks pretty level. And the level, since the machine's sitting like this, the frame also seems to be sitting like that. So I think it's good enough. Let's tack this in place. All right, and what I've been told is when welding on equipment, in addition to disconnecting the negative terminal on the battery, make sure your ground clamp is close to where you're going to be welding. That way it keeps the current going directly to the ground instead of flowing through your machine and maybe tearing up some kind of hydraulic. So I'm going to start by tacking it right here, and I've got my ground clamp right there. So let's see how this does. It's also getting a little windy out here, so I'm going to use the gas shielded flux core wire, the dual shield. And if I have any problems with that because of this wind that gusts occasionally, I'll switch to an arc weld. But we'll see how this goes. Okay, for a quick tack, I think that's good. Let's move the other side. I'm going to use this clamp just to pull this tight. I think these look really good. So just going to weld that whole line out, and then I'm going to make some spacers to fill these gaps. I think this is going to work great. I don't want to weld all of this out in one stretch because I don't want to heat up all the stuff on the back side back here. Like the mirror. No, there are wires and stuff back there, so yeah, I want to heat that up. So I'll try and keep this part cool enough that it won't melt any electronics or any plastic. So I'm really happy with that weld. And I'm really happy with that weld. These are a little tighter. This is the ugliest one on it. Ooh, maybe that's the ugliest one on it. So I'm just welding this in sections, and I can only go about, I've went 4 inches a couple times, but we got a lot of smoke, so I think I'll go about 2 inches. I don't want to heat up anything inside there and set this on fire. That would be counterproductive. So I'm not going to try to bridge this gap, but what I'll do is I'll run a bead on this piece, then run a bead on that piece, and probably a couple beads in there, and that will make a small enough spot that I can bridge that gap. So we'll see how that works. Okay, so there's the first bead, and I put that on the cab. Now I can do a bead on this piece of steel, and that should allow us to bridge that gap. I need to go ahead and fill this in, but you can see it from it smoking. I didn't want to get it too hot. And what that is this plastic grommet around that headlight, which I don't even think they work, so I'm not worried about it. But I don't want to set it on fire. All right, well, you know, it's not the worst weld in the world. Probably not the best, but it'll definitely hold this frame on here, and that's what we're looking for. And we didn't set the skid steer on fire. That's always good. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, don't quite shut. What's the deal? Get inside and find out what the problem is. Okay, so I need to shorten that stiffener. I think I've got this one far enough. Just need to take a little bit off that one. Perfect. Oh, look at that. Gotta love it. Okay, one thing I see is when the arm is not below here or above there, you won't be able to get out through this way. But that's okay, because that's also very unsafe. And I actually was talking to a friend of mine that I met that has a construction company, and he said if he ever sees any of his employees climb out under raised arms without that safety strut in place, they don't have a job anymore. That rear window is the emergency exit on this skid steer and actually on most skid steers. So do I want to climb out over the window? Heck no. But will I? You better believe it. Not bad. And that door is a 1/2 inch thick Lexan. So I wouldn't say it's bulletproof, but it's impact resistant for things like running a hydraulic cutter off the front of this. So inside the cab, pull that shut. Have great visibility. And I've got a pretty nice door. So that piece of Lexan was 350 bucks. And the steel, some of that was scrap that I had, but I did buy one stick of that angle iron and it was $51. So for $400, I've got a door that when I looked at them to buy them from Bobcat or anybody that made accessory ones was over $1,500. So I'm happy. Well, I love my door. Only one problem. I can't get out.
We seem to have technical difficulties. Not to mention, it's not going to go over that cylinder top either. So I think he's going to have to remove a few corners and make some modifications.
Yeah, so we got to cut out for this fitting, that cylinder, and then when that opens all the way up, that cylinder top will also be a problem. So back to the drawing board for just a moment. Okay, so we measured that out, and I think if I cut these corners off, we'll be okay on that cylinder. Just put tape down if you're going to use something like this so don't scratch up your Lexan. I think what I'm going to do here is instead, it takes a circle, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up and just cut another rectangle right there. Okay, with the arms down, let's see if we can put this in. Look at that. Ha! Perfect. All right, I like it. I like it a lot. I really think, I don't know if I'd had to cut those off if I'd lowered the arm all the way down. I guess I didn't have it all the way down the first time. That's all right. It looks good. And it does what it needs to do. So here's the new clearance, and it's plenty on that hydraulic fitting. And those cylinders, if I lowered the arms all the way down, it goes right over them. And including this one on that side. So to keep the door shut, I mean, I don't know, you probably come up with magnets or something, but I think this bungee cord works great. That keeps it from coming open or flopping open. So, and then the little foam backing around it keeps from scratching it up or banging too much, making it quiet. I think it's good. I love it. I'd much rather spend under $500 and do a couple days work, which I like doing anyway, than spend $1,500. And who knows what problems you might have putting something like that on, because this was an open cab. It never had a door on it. All right, we appreciate you watching. And if you got anything out of this video, give us a thumbs up. It absolutely helps the channel. And we invite you to subscribe to see more. Definitely put in your comments any way that you think I could improve this door, or if I should have just spent the $1,500 and bought one from Bobcat. Have a great day and be safe.